I'm going to talk on China's understanding of the strategic structure in the Middle East. I mean, 2 years ago, I think many people defined the process in the Middle East as Arab Spring or revolution or something like that. But in China, many scholars define it as unrest, turmoil. So, I mean, some Chinese scholars prefer to use a neutral term, change in the Middle East. But after 2.5 years, I think we could use another term, transition, to define the whole process, because this is really, I mean, a process of transition, and the future is unclear, uncertain. And it also makes Chinese scholar to make comparison between this transition in the Middle East to 1911 Xinhai Revolution in China, because during that time, also, there was no consensus over the nature of the state, the constitution, and also the political system. So, I mean, it took about at least 40 years for China to establish a stable political system. Then I think we cannot be very optimistic of the future of the transition in the Middle East. And also, if we use the term Arab Spring, we will still divide the whole process into three separate process. I mean, the first one is from Tunisia to Egypt. I think this is a real Arab Spring. It reflects the people's demand, the people's request, to have democracy, to have socio-economic development. But from Bahrain to Yemen, it's a second process. It's not a reflection of the people's demand. It's just to reflect the interests of Gulf countries and also some Western countries to control the situation in the neighboring countries of GCC, especially Saudi Arabia. And the third process, began from Libya to Syria. It's totally different. It's just a regime change, because we see after the regime change in Libya, what happened, and now the sectarian conflict and also civil war, very bloody civil war in Syria. Now we Chinese, we try to divide all these countries into four categories. The countries, in the Middle East into four categories. The first category is Arab countries in transition, including Egypt, Yemen, Libya, and also Tunisia, to some extent Syria also in this category. The second category is U.S. allies, including Saudi Arabia and the other Gulf countries, and also Israel. The third category is countries against the Western or especially U.S. hegemony in the region, especially Iran and some other political forces, Hezbollah and Hamas. The fourth category is countries in the middle camp. I mean, some countries like Turkey, Algeria, Lebanon, they are in the middle. They didn't try to support the U.S. hegemony, but they are not against this kind of hegemony. So I think for China, it's very clear we should develop relationship with all these four categories of countries. We should have a balanced relationship with them, but it's more and more difficult because at first, I mean, as Professor Mohammed Salim has mentioned, Syria crisis is a big challenge to China because some regional countries, especially Saudi Arabia and some Gulf countries, are not satisfied or angry to China's position. So I want to say something about this. I think, in the beginning, we support the political transition. It's very clear, but led by Syrian people. We are not against the political transition, but there must be a solution instead of just create more conflicts. So the reality is, the military solution cannot solve any problem. We have witnessed the crisis, the disaster in Iraq, in Afghanistan. So we shouldn't, repeat the same disaster in Syria. Especially Syria is in the center of the Middle East. People are trying to say, China doesn't have any interest in Syria. No, I say no, we have. We have very limited economic and energy interest in Syria, but we have interest of principle in Syria. We support political solution, and also we think we should support the legitimacy of UN Security Council, because any military attack should be authorized by UN Security Council. No one country or a group of countries can launch a military attack against any other sovereign country without this authorization from the UN Security Council. So this principle is the number one interest of China. Number two, we have very huge security concern of Syria because more and more jihadists, more and more terrorists, are emerging in Syria. Different groups some special envoy from UN. We met each other, and he told me some 2,000 groups, militant groups in Syria, and 600 groups with more than 50 fighters. So I think in the first half year of this year, China witnessed more terrorist attacks, not only in Xinjiang, but just a few days in Beijing. Maybe these terrorist attacks don't have any direct linkage with the situation in Syria, but it's very clear, this kind of attack are inspired by the situation in the Middle East. We can feel that, and we can see this kind of jihadist CD and USB. We can find them, from where they come, and this kind of ideology from where. So after this, I want to mention, three main trends in the Middle East. The first trend is, the transition in Arab countries would be very difficult and would be very long. This process at least face 4 difficulties. The first one, how to have a political system, stable, sustainable political system. It's very clear in these countries in transition, there's no consensus on the nature of the state, on the political structure, and also no political forces will to share powers with others. We see the secularists against Islamists. We see the military against the non-military. Even inside the Islamist camps, we see this brotherhood against Salafism. So, for the Middle Eastern countries, especially Islamic countries, I think there must be some kind of dual legitimacy instead of one legitimacy. We cannot only say democracy. It's not enough. It should be Islamic democracy. Because for these countries, you cannot imagine that Islamic value doesn't play any role in this country. It must play some role in the political system, and how to institutionalize this kind of Islamic value and Islamic forces into the political system is the number one challenge. And number two challenge, I think, is socio-economic challenge. Certainly, we know, these Arab countries in transition face severe socio-economic problems. But more serious, they don't have very clear agenda and clear pattern or paradigm for socio-economic development. For example, in Libya, maybe they produce, a large amount of oil, but this oil energy sector contribute to more than 90% of the government revenue, but only create 2% for the jobs of the people. So it means that they don't have clear agenda for sustainable, comprehensive socio-economic development pattern. And for us, we think, for example, in Egypt, it's not just China-Egyptian relation. It's not just a trade. We should help Egypt to industrialize. This industrialization is more important. So I think for China, we should do more than to have trade. First, we should help Egypt to build this infrastructure, and then to help Egypt to develop its manufacturing capability and also this agricultural capability. So that's more important. So there are a lot of things to do. Only to see the trade, for favor of China, is a result. It's not the reason. We should solve the problem, And the third challenge, I think, the security issue is very clear in Libya. The spread of small arms and and weapons. According to the survey of the UN, the weapons from Libya has spread to more than 12 countries. And in Yemen, in North Africa, we see the Al Qaeda, AQAP, AQAM. So without a stable and secure society, how could you imagine any real socio-economic development? And the third challenge is foreign policy, I think, because we look at Egypt, look at Bahrain, especially Qatar. Sorry, one professor from Georgetown University, Mehran Kamrava, said, "Why Qatar can perform in the whole Middle East without any constraint? Because Qatar is not worried for its security. It's protected by the U.S. So Qatar can, perform in a, not responsible way. This is, unhealthy for the country. This is the first trend, I think, transition. And the second trend, I think, is the sectarian conflict in Syria, in Iraq, in the whole Middle East, in Yemen, in all these countries. We see this sectarian conflict. But I personally think sectarian conflict is more a way of thinking and discourse than a reality. It's a result of political conflict. It's not the reason of the political conflict. Yeah, if we look back for the last 4 decades of Saudi-Iranian relations, it's very clear. In the 1970s, Saudi Arabia and Iran, as one Sunni country, one Shia country, they were two pillars for the U.S. Even the Iran, was a police of Gulf in the region. It can protect Saudi Arabia. So what's the meaning of sectarian conflict? In 1980s, after Islamic Revolution in Iran, so there were political conflicts between the two countries, and then we see the Iran-Iraq war supported by GCC countries. So in 1990s, because of the Gulf crisis and Gulf war, because of the threat of Iraq, Saddam Hussein, and then you see Iran, and there is a rapprochement between Iran and Saudi Arabia. And then after 2003 Iraq war, the threat of Saddam Hussein has been removed, and then you see the current sectarian conflict. So I think I totally agree with the Professor Asghar Khani. There must be a collective regional security arrangement to solve the security concern of Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, and all the Gulf countries. And then, if there is a trust between the different countries in the region, they will not talk on sectarian conflict. Yeah. The third trend is, I think, is this crisis of Islamism in the Middle East. For example, Brotherhood. It's very clear for the last 2 years, the Egyptian Brotherhood didn't, succeed in the political performance. And also, let's look at Turkey, this AKP party. I think it's a total failure for the AKP of foreign policy in the last 2 years. And also see the Ghazi Park, incident in the last May and June. Even AKP, cannot create a successful political model for the country. And also look at Salafism. Salafism always talk on, okay, we should learn the pragmatism from Brotherhood. But after Morsi has been removed, and then Salafism, what's the direction of Salafism for the future? And also Salafism try to define themselves as anti-Shia. But what is Salafism? They must have a political theory, ideological theory, and also this socio-economic development theory. So all this strength, I think, the great powers in the world, not only in China, but US, but European countries, but Russia, have to address, because this is domestic change in the region. But we think, the US doesn't have a very clear idea how to address these challenges. For example, in the first half of the year, the U.S. has, after 2 years of change, the U.S. has some kind of strategy. We can see that U.S. pushed Turkey and Israel to reconcile with each other. Netanyahu called Erdogan. But after that, the June 30 change and also this military change in Egypt, Turkey's position changed. And then this kind of Israeli-Turkey axis in the Middle East cannot continue. So some kind of new things have emerged. This Israelis try to develop strong relation with Saudi. So more and more talks on Israeli-Saudi axis in the Middle East against the Iranian threat, against the Brotherhood Crescent. This is a term coined by Jordanian king just a few months ago. So we see all this kind of design just for the interest of U.S. instead of address the regional challenges. So I think for China, we have different perception, we have different approach. First, we think we focus on the development and peace. These are the real main themes in the region, instead of talking on only security and value. Without peace and development, how could you make the people have a happy life? How could you make the region, witness real development? And second, I think we should pay more attention, use more resources in the region. I think last year, the Dean of School of International Relations in Peking University, Professor Wang Jisi, forward the March West idea or March West theory. China should make the countries to the west of China, including Central Asia, North Asia, and Middle East, as a focus of China's future strategy. So we should do more in this region. We should help this region to develop. And the third point is, China should develop a balanced relationship with all the countries in the region, although there are many difficulties. And the third point is we should contribute more to solve the problems in the region, the crisis in the region, including Syria, including nuclear issues, and a lot of things. And I think also one point is very important. There must be some cooperation and coordination and checking balance between the great powers. We see this between China, US, and Russia. So we expect expect more European role in this field. Thank you very much.